Howdy, partners. It's Labor Day, and I want to do some work that I love. I hope I manage to this time make the screen sharing work out right from the beginning. Let's see. Last time it looked like I'm sharing. Okay, should work. All right, so just wanted to hop on and finish chapter 1. Chrysalis. Am I really? We made it to page 23 until my voice died, and we're going to give it a shot today and see how it goes. I've been really enjoying the book so far. So let me make this full screen. How do I go? Oops. Give me a sec. Hold on until Grandma figures out. The fuck? So shift scroll, control scroll, nothing makes the window larger. Let me stop sharing. And the fuck am I doing here? Full screen mode. Can I not do this while sharing the screen? No, the fuck not. That's some bullshit. Last try. And we just go old school like this. All right. Are you ready? I'm not. Marion's been really doing me good. Okay. I have found that individuals tend to repeat the pattern of their own actual birth every time life requires them to move on to a new level of awareness. As they enter the world, so they continue to re-enter at each new spiral of growth. If, for example, their birth was straightforward, they tend to handle Passovers with courage and natural trust. If their birth was difficult, they become extremely fearful, manifest symptoms of suffocating, becoming claustrophobic, psychically and physically. If they were premature, they tend to be always a little ahead of themselves. If they were held back, the rebirth process may be very slow. If they were breech birth, they tend to go through life ass backwards. If they were born by cesarean section, they may avoid confrontations. If their mother was heavily drugged, they may come up to the point of Passover with lots of energy, then suddenly, for no apparent reason, stop or move into a regression and wait for someone else to do something. Often, this is the point where addictions reappear: binging, starving, drinking, sleeping, overworking, anything to avoid facing the reality of moving out into a challenging world. Many delightful babies appear in dreams, and just as many little tyrants who need firm and loving discipline. One child, however, is noticeably different from the others. This is the abandoned one, who may appear in bulrushes, in straw in a barn, in a tree, almost always in some forgotten or out-of-the-way place. This child will be radiant with light, robust, intelligent, sensitive. Often it is able to talk minutes after it is born. It has presence. It is the divine child, bringing with it the hard and bitter agony of the new dispensation, the agony of Eliot's Magi. With its birth, the old gods have to go. Since the natural gradient of the psyche is toward wholeness, the self will attempt to push the neglected part forward for recognition. It contains the energy of the highest value, the gold in the dung. In the Bible, it is the stone that was rejected that becomes the cornerstone. It manifests either in a sudden or subtle change in personality, or conversely, in a fanaticism with the existing ego, with which the existing ego. I stumbled because I got stuck here when I saw the footnote reference. And I suggest, since I already skipped 8 of them, that at the end of the book, I will revisit each one and quickly go back to the respective part in the chapters and see if I have anything to say. I might not do that. I might. We will see. You will all find out in a while. So let me start that sentence here again. It manifests either in a sudden or subtle change in personality, or conversely, in a fanaticism which the existing ego adopts in order to try to keep the new and threatening energy out. If the ego fails to go through the psychic birth canal, neurotic symptoms manifest physically and psychically. The suffering may be intense, but it is based on worshipping false gods. It is not the genuine suffering that accompanies efforts to incorporate the new life. The neurotic is always one phase behind where his reality is. When he should be outgrowing childish behavior, he hangs on to it. When he should be moving into maturity, he hangs on to youthful folly. Never congruent with himself or others, he is never where he seems to be. What he cannot do is live in the now. Many people are being dragged toward wholeness in their daily lives, but because they do not understand initiation rites, they cannot make sense of what is happening to them. They put on a happy face all day and return to their apartment and cry all night. Perhaps their beloved has gone off with someone else. Perhaps their business has failed. Perhaps they have lost interest in their work. Perhaps they are coping with a fatal illness. Perhaps a loved one has died. Perhaps, and this is the worst of all, everything has begun to go wrong for no apparent reason. If they have no concept of rites of passage, they experience themselves as victims, powerless to resist an overwhelming fate. Their meaningless suffering drives them to escape through food, alcohol, drugs, sex. Or they take up arms against the gods and cry out, "Why me?" They are being presented with the possibility of rebirth into a different life through failures, symptoms, inferiority feelings, and overwhelming problems. They are being prodded to renounce life attachments that have become redundant. The possibility of rebirth constellates with the breakdown of what has gone before. This is why Jung emphasized the positive purpose of neurosis. But because they do not understand, people cling to the familiar, refuse to make the necessary sacrifices, resist their own growth. Unable to give up their habitual lives, they are unable to receive new life. Unless cultural rituals support the leap from one level of consciousness to another, there are no containing walls within which the process can happen. Without an understanding of myth or religion, without an understanding of the relationship between destruction and creation, death and rebirth, the individual suffers the mysteries of life as a meaningless mayhem, alone. To ease the meaningless suffering, addictions may develop that are an attempt to repress the confusing demands of the growth process, which cultural structures no longer clarify or contain. The burning question when one enters analysis is, who am I? The immediate problem, however, as soon as powerful emotions begin to surface, is often a psyche-soma split. While women tend to talk about their bodies more than men, both sexes in our culture are grievously unrelated to their own body experience. Women say, "I don't like this body." Men say, "It hurts." Their use of the third person neuter pronoun in referring to their body makes quite clear their sense of alienation. They might talk about my heart, my kidneys, my feet, but their body as a whole is depersonalized. Repeatedly, they say, I don't feel anything below the neck. I experience feelings in my head, but nothing in my head. Their lack of emotional response to a powerful dream image reflects the split. And yet, when they engage in active imagination with that dream image located in their body, their muscles release undulations of repressed grief. The body has become the whipping post. If the person is anxious, the body is starved, gorged, drugged, intoxicated, forced to vomit, driven into exhaustion, or driven to frenzied reaction against self destruction. When this magnificent animal attempts to send up warning signals, it is silenced with pills. Many people can listen to their cat more intelligently than they can listen to their own despised body. Because they attend to their pet in a cherishing way, it returns their love. Their body, however, may have to let out an earth shattering scream in order to be heard at all. Before symptoms manifest, quieter screams appear in dreams: a forsaken baby elephant, a starving kitten, a dog with a leg ripped out. Almost always, the wounded animal is either gently or fiercely attempting to attract the attention of the dreamer, who may or may not respond. In fairy tales, it is the friendly animal who often carries the hero or heroine to the goal because the animal is the instinct that knows how to obey the goddess when reason fails. It is possible that the scream that comes from the forsaken body, the scream that manifests in a symptom, is the cry of the soul that can find no other way to be heard. If we have lived behind the mask all our lives, sooner or later, if we are lucky, that mask will be smashed. Then we will have to look in our own mirror at our own reality, because we will be appalled. Perhaps we will look into the terrified eyes of our own tiny child, that child who has never known love and who now beseeches us to respond. This child is alone, forsaken before we left the womb, or at birth, or when we began to please our parents and learn to put on our best performance in order to be accepted. As life progresses, we may continue to abandon our child by pleasing others: teachers, professors, bosses, friends, and partners, even analysts. That child who is our very soul cries from underneath the rubble of our lives, often from the core of our worst complex, begging us to say, "You are not alone. I love you." We dare not drop the tensions. In order to widen consciousness, we have to hold both arms on the cross. If we reject one part of ourselves, we give up our past. If we reject the other part, we give up our future. We must hold on to our roots and build from there. Those roots often appear as a psychic home, sometimes a summer cottage that the dreamer loves, or the country of his origin, or his ancestors' origin. The longing to go home must certainly be looked at symbolically, for it is often more than a regressive longing for the security of the womb. It can be one solid root that goes right through one's life, becoming the point of genuine nurturance for spiritual growth. Whether we like it or not, one of our tasks on this earth is to work with the opposites through different levels of consciousness until body, soul, and spirit resonate together. Initiation rites, experienced at the appropriate times in our lives, burn off what is no longer relevant, opening our eyes to new possibilities of our own uniqueness. They tear off the protective wheels of illusion until at last we are strong enough to stand in our own naked truth. Oops, sorry. Some drinking. And some coughing. But you don't need to hear that. The process is mirrored in dreams, often in images of cooking, cars, cupboards, and clothes. The Cinderella work is accomplished in the kitchen. Having brought the wild things of nature in, taken off their feathers, cleaned out their entrails, cooked them, and made them accessible to consciousness, the ego stands firm. Mother and father no longer drive the car. The incessant sorting through actual cupboards and drawers has ceased, and the sorting in dreams has reached a finely differentiated level of detail. What clothes to wear is no longer a constant frustration, and the incongruous shoe combinations have at last settled into pairs that are the same color with the same size heel. Or maybe no shoes at all. Just good solid feet on good solid ground. Usually the self allows the ego time to enjoy the spirit of experiencing its new strength. Perhaps months, perhaps years. Each process is unique. moving at its own appointed pace. The existence and continuity of the ego is essential to our lives. It is necessary that we experience the person who wakes up in the morning as the same person who fell asleep last night, despite the fact that what took place during the hours of sleep may appear so unrelated to the waking state that it never enters consciousness. One way in which the ego maintains its integrity is to remove from itself everything that does not directly offer its support. It simply excludes or suppresses everything which does not coincide with its conscious understanding of itself. The danger is in such a limited view is that the ego may harden and dry up, just as the earth will harden and dry up if it's not continually replenished with water. The ego needs the nourishment of underground springs. It requires the compensatory life of dreams if its continuity is to move beyond mere survival and perpetuation. In addition to these, it requires direction and purpose. As soon as it gives itself up to a higher goal, however, it is threatened, not only by the fear that it may not be able to achieve it, but by a dawning sense that that higher goal, because of the demands it makes, is the enemy of the ego. In some sense, the ego feels that it may be working against itself. Ultimately, of course, it is, but for a better good. The goal of human striving in the individuation process is the recognition of the self, the regulating center of the psyche. That recognition relativizes the ego's position in the psychic structure and initiates a dialogue between conscious and unconscious. The only way the self can manifest is through conflict, writes Marie-Louise von Franz. To meet one's insoluble and eternal conflict is to meet God, which would be the end of the ego with all its blather. If the ego rejects that conflict, then the goal is contaminated by the ego's desire for more and more power, or wealth, or happiness. The result is ego inflation. According to Jung, an inflated consciousness is always egocentric and conscious of nothing but its own existence. It is incapable of learning from the past, incapable of understanding contemporary events, and incapable of drawing right conclusions about the future. It is hypnotized by itself and therefore cannot be argued with. It inevitably dooms itself to calamities that must strike it dead. Paradoxically enough, inflation is a regression of consciousness into unconsciousness. This always happens when consciousness takes too many unconscious contents upon itself and loses the faculty of discrimination, the sine qua non of all consciousness. The inflated ego tends to idolatry. It focuses on a single image, fashions it, and worships it. Determined to create that image, it is trapped in profane ritual. Religious. What is wrong with me right now? I think I'm tired. Let me have another sip of water and maybe change how I'm sitting. I could have done some speech, voice warming up exercises before because I haven't really talked until now and it's 4:40. So yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. Since you're used to such high quality production level here. What a shame. All right. Religiously speaking, all such profane rituals are contained in the worship of the golden calf. A fat woman's body image, for example, may be her golden calf. No matter how much she thinks she hates it, her rituals are taking place around it. It is thraldom before her own body image that she may be called upon to sacrifice. The profane worship must be sacrificed to make way for the sacred. The withdrawal from the one operates simultaneously with the entrance into the other. We withdraw as we enter. Withdrawing is entering. Whether we stress the withdrawing or the entering, we are stressing the same thing. When this process begins, it may be reflected in the dreams by a bell tolling, an alarm sounding, or lightning striking. It can also be heralded by physical symptoms. It can be brought on by loss of faith, loss of relationship, or the imminence of death. Something almost imperceptible begins to happen. For people watching their dreams, the bell usually tolls some weeks before the actual events occur. In real life, we seem to be carrying on as usual, but a very calm inner voice may begin to comment, hinting that things are not as they seem to be. We may find ourselves singing songs that put a very ironic twist on our conscious actions. Our inner clown may be singing, "Put your sweet lips a little closer," to the tune of "Please release me and let me go." If the ego has not sufficient strength and flexibility, it will panic and either regress to its former terrors of annihilation or regress to its former rigid framework, in either case, refusing to go through the birth canal. The ego now has to be strong enough to remain concentrated in stillness so that it can meditate what is happening both positively and negatively. It must hold a detached position, relying now on its differentiated femininity in order to submit, now on its discriminating masculinity in order to question and cut away. Something immense begins to happen in the very foundation of the personality, while consciousness experiences the conflict as crucifixion. Ego desires are no longer relevant. The old questions no longer have any meaning, and there are no answers. There may be a few stricken whys, but they belong to the order of logic and discipline, and what is taking place is irrational, beyond ego control. The ego, on some level, knows. It knows what is happening, has to happen. It knows that its personal desires have to be sacrificed to the transpersonal. It knows it is confronting death. It is a period of throbbing pain. It is King Lear howling to the heat, brought to submission and reunited with a daughter whose truth was her dowry. At last, he says, "Upon such sacrifices, my Cordelia, the gods themselves throw incense." It is Job covered with boils, moving from "do not condemn me, shew me wherefore thou contendest with me," to "I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee." It is Jesus in Gethsemane, sweating blood, moving from "let this cup pass from me" to "thy will be done." A woman during such a period of withdrawal and entry had the following vision. "I was walking by the St. Lawrence one sunny summer day. I thought I was going home. Instantly the sky darkened, the earth grew cold. I could not see with my eyes nor hear with my ears. I was seeing inside, hearing inside. Then I realized I was on ice, floating, suddenly not floating, but being thrust by the power of the current. The ice began to crack. I leaped from one floe to another, the ice cracking in front, behind, beside. I thought I might die in the ice cold water or be ground by the grating blocks. And all the time I knew I was being propelled toward the ocean. I just keep jumping and screaming, "Please, God, don't kill me. Not yet. Not this time." At times like this, Rilke's words can be very reassuring. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are written in a foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you because you will not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. These situations, whether in analysis or in life, or both, can raise profound religious questions. Is this God confronting me? Was I on the wrong track? Am I being forcibly turned around? Is there some almighty plan that is different from mine? Am I being forced to submit? Should I accept faith? Do I, in fact, have any free will? Is this God burning away the wheels of illusion, or am I facing the devil? Is he making one last stand to cheat me out of my own life? Psychologically, the questions are equally blistering. Is this the self demanding a sacrifice? Or is this the real face of the complex that has crippled me all my life? Just when I thought I could be free, there it is to destroy me. Everything I have fought so hard to bring any consciousness is now in question. Why do I suddenly wake up every night at the same time? Why do I feel this searing pain? Why are my hands so weak? Am I really alone? I'm worse off now than I ever was. I'm back in the old pattern. I'm back in the matrix, back in the garden, recognizing the place for the first time. Is this who I really am? Is this who I have been running away from all my life? Psychologically, the ego, like Lear, Job, and Jesus, is penetrating and being penetrated by the archetypal ground of being in an effort to bring consciousness, whatever it can, out of that vast unknown. It experiences another law operating from within, a dawning realization that it has a destiny of its own which must be obeyed. It knows that something new is being born. It has to breathe into the pain and let it be. Many people in our culture are attempting to suffer these transformations alone, without any ritual container and without any group to support the influx of transcendent power. Like Eliot's Magi, the experience they experience the birth as hard and bitter agony, like death, our death. They are no longer at ease here, in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. Without the container and without the group, the aloneness is almost intolerable. The individual ego has to be strong enough to build its own chrysalis in order to create a loving communication with its own inner symbols. Their luminosity brings the confidence and integrity, humor and illumination without which the ego could not survive, let alone expand. A childish ego, primitive and unconscious, cannot maintain a living chrysalis. It wants to protect everything, and tuned to a natural order, it explains what happens by magic. The chrysalis becomes too precious in itself, shell-lacked with sentimentality. A childlike ego can hold the tension, pull in the projections, and ponder the inner mystery. At the transpersonal level, the symbols are simultaneously individual and universal. At that level, none of us is alone. New relationships, bypassing the world of transitory disguise, begin at that depth, and from there relate back to the world in a totally new way. Ooh, you almost caught that cough. Oh, this is terrible. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought I was in a better shape. I should have just taken a nap. Anyway, I like being here, doing this for me. It really helps. I feel so seen with what I'm reading here. This is exactly me. And I think I'm in this travel from ish to like. And I probably need a container or a group. I do have, fortunately, the privilege and the luck and the blessing to have people who will, I presume, take on such a form as she is describing here. Because, yeah, it is intolerable what I'm going through at the moment. Not gonna lie. Okay. Let's finish. I think we have 2 more pages. Yeah, it's almost over. Hours before he died, Thomas Merton, author of The Seven-Story Mountain, gave a lecture which concluded with a plea for openness to the painfulness of inner change. What is essential is not embedded in buildings, is not embedded in clothing, is not necessarily embedded even in a rule. It is somewhere along the line of something deeper than a rule. It is concerned with this business of total inner transformation. According to his own account, Merton completed his inner transformation on his Asian journey, standing barefoot in the presence of the giant Buddhas of Polonnaruwa in Ceylon. I know and have seen what I was obscurely looking for, he wrote. I don't know what else remains, but I have now seen and have pierced through the surface and have got beyond the shadow and the disguise. When Merton asked a Buddhist abbot, "What is the knowledge of freedom?" the abbot replied, "One must ascend all the steps, but then when there are no more steps, one must make the leap. Knowledge of freedom is the knowledge the experience of this sleep, of this leap, not this sleep, but nice sleep. What is this? Voices from the Chrysalis. Oh, I think that's Analysts statements, probably, huh? It's hard for me to trust life. I like to take hold of it, grab it by the neck, and put my teeth into it, just to be sure it doesn't get away on me. I try to see how far I come, rather than how far I have to go. Now that I'm contacting my own inner clock, I'm so slow. My life is on top of me. The collision of values overwhelms me. Am I wasting my time? I don't know. I don't know. This terrible aloneness. I've always identified with what I'm not, but who am I? My guilt and shame and fear are making me human. I was always waiting until all the responsibilities were completed. Then there would be time for more. For me. How? I never thought about that. I've been so busy doing, I missed something very important to me. I don't think I was ever a child. I have no recollection at all of being a very young child with any sense of being me. I wonder if it takes a holocaust, outer to inner, to help us to realize what is really essential in life. I lived a smile and grin existence. I was dying. I rage for life. I want so much to be free. I'm trying to have faith that I will be born. I'm so off balance. I pray for daily guidance to avoid tripping over things. I can go to sleep when I orient myself to the stars. The spirit is in the volcano inside. My relationships aren't very good right now, so I go back to work. I'm safe there, but even that isn't perfect. I'll explode if I have to react to one more thing. I'm pulling back. I'm overwhelmed by the pressure of the outside world, and the mounting pressure of the interior world are making me feel actually sick. Used to feel capable, used to speak and write well. Now I never feel secure because I can't find words. Am I fighting my destiny, or does my destiny require I take a stand? When I touch into that essence and recognize myself as what I've been running away from, I'm humbled. I'm Miss Compassion, Miss Humanity. I'm a missing piece. I'm also a child of God. To get rid of one's past, one has to forgive, confront and forgive, and move into the present. Forgive oneself too, and God. I hated my father. I hated myself. Illustration by Barbara Swan for Anne Sexton's Sleeping Beauty. I have a friend who really got me onto Anne Sexton. Maybe I will read her too here eventually. Who knows? All right. So that was finishing. Thank you very much. I'll have to digest what I just read. I'm sorry for all the stumbling. That was a lot of blah, blah, blah. And yeah. I love you. Bye.